Hello, hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. If you are tuning in for the first time, this is the La Maison de Rouge Monday night weekly live broadcast. I am your host, Lucy Sweetkill, one half of the duo that is La Maison de Rouge. A little bit about who we are. LMDR is dedicated to expanding the BDSM experience by discussing, educating, and informing our audiences about the intersections of kink, wellness, sexuality, spirituality, and social activism. We aim to create a safe space for discussing these topics, as well as providing an avenue for our guests to share their stories and experiences. Thank you again for joining us. Tonight, our guest is a native Midwesterner and a Chicago Dominatrix with 15 years of experience practicing BDSM as a top. Estelle now lives in South Florida and tours Chicago and New York City regularly. She believes in the healing power of a touch and deep validation through a DS dynamic. She's a world traveler, a vegan, a weightlifting enthusiast, and a certified health coach. Please welcome pronoun she, her, Estelle Sinclair. Hello, Estelle. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you for having me.
How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm just looking out over the Hudson River from my hotel in your city. It's such a beautiful evening here.
So funny. I was like, does she know that? I was just trying to make sure, because I know you're in Chicago a lot. I was like,
Yeah.
The time zone was correct, because that happens all the time when we're interviewing people all over.
Yeah, I'm notorious for messing that up too. So I'm glad that you checked in with me.
But it's great to know you're already here. So
yes.
I'm going to take 1 second, and you might actually see this on your Twitter as well, that we have tagged you in a post. So you're welcome to retweet that for other people to join in.
Okay.
And I just retweeted that out. But when you are ready, our first question that we love to ask any new guest is your origin story. So how did you get to where you are now? Because as we all know, many of us aren't kind of, trained to be a dominatrix as a kindergartner. We are led to this place through passion, through life, through the universe telling us,
right,
guiding us to this direction. So we would love to hear your origin story, as far back as you want to go. Any early memories of kinkiness and female dominant that sort of makes sense to where you ended up.
So you're right. This is a story that everyone always asks me, especially a new client or a new kinky friend. And it's interesting because it makes you sit down and really kind of go through your childhood and growing up with a fine-tooth comb, trying to figure out what those little gems were that helped kind of plant seeds for who you become later on. And it's kind of embarrassing, but so obviously I was not a bossy little girl. I was actually a really serious, like contemplative little girl. But when it came to any competition or anything like that, I would shine, totally shine. So if there was a race, if the boys were running, chasing me, I wanted to chase them. And what started to happen is that when I would chase them, tackle them, I would sit on them and I would get an amazing rush. This is like as a child. I wanted to sit on these boys. And so fast forward a little bit, I'm maybe 10, 11, 12, and I have a friend, his name is Rodney, which is sad name. Rodney. I don't know him anymore. I should look him up on Facebook or something, but he was really into WWE. Or is it WWF? Worldwide Wrestling
Federation? They changed it to WWE or something.
What is the E for?
Because they had, I forget, there was like a name change because there was some environmental group that had the other one or something.
Right, the Wildlife Federation.
I think that's what it was.
The E. That's so funny. So this is the other day. What's that? Yeah, this was before that, when it was WWF, I guess. So Rodney wanted to wrestle me, and he was a big boy, and he was very serious about his wrestling. So I started to really love getting just physical and handling his body as a kid.
Yeah.
But it was the same rush that I would get on the playground, chasing and sitting on these boys. So then fast forward some more, and I'm always a counterculture, like subculture kid growing up. And I'm loving punk rock. I'm loving some rockabilly. And I discover this band called The Cramps. And they're like a psychobilly rockabilly. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I see one of the artists, Poison Ivy, and I think inside of one of their booklets, they had pictures of Betty Page.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so that was my first kind of resonance. Like, I just saw Betty Page and I saw Poison Ivy, and I said, I want to be that girl. Whatever that means to be her, I want to be her. The aesthetic was so attractive to me. And little did I know, those things go together really nicely. My interest in sitting on boys and dressing like Betty Page were going to seamlessly just dovetail together later on in my life. And that didn't come about until I met a friend. All of my girlfriends were a little bit older than me, and one of them went to college. And so maybe I'm 16 and she's 18 and she's in college. And I go to stay with her at her dorm, and one of her friends comes over who's also a little bit older, and he has on leather pants, and his name is Walter. And Walter like kind of sees me. He like sees the baby dom in me, and he's like, you would like these magazines that I have. And he gives me a bunch of Bondage Fairies comic books. Are you familiar with that?
Bondage Fairy comic books. I'm not
It's
sure.
like anime. I'm not into that shit anymore, but
I love anime, and I most probably have come across it.
oh, I'm sure that you have. It's really, really cute.
Horrible with names.
I'm sure you've seen it. It's literally just all lesbian erotica cartoons with fairies and bondage. And so, yeah, so that resonated really hard. And I was just constantly like looking for my people from then on, and interested in sexuality, graduated high school, graduated college with a degree in gender studies, and said, you know what? I just figured out that there's work for me in the universe, making money, being who I am, and being really creative in it, and sought it out. So I was like in college making money on Craigslist doing foot fetish stuff, like a lot of us.
As one does.
As one does, exactly, yes. And, you know, just kind of continued to unravel that thread. And in searching one day, after I finished college, I found an ad for DOMs at a dungeon house in Chicago. And I went to Chicago and interviewed for the job and got the job, moved to Chicago immediately. And that was 2011. So, yep, 10 years into Chicago domination. And I went to college for 5 years. So I was beating up boys for 5 years in college, not really knowing what I was doing. So the house domination was really good for developing more technical skills and hospitality and BDSM skills.
Is your house, does it still exist?
Mm-mm.
No.
It does not. No, it was the one that the one that was all in the news in Chicago with the madam who got busted for trafficking and all kinds of stuff. Did you read about that?
Oh God, I feel like there's been so many of those. So it's like,
yeah,
wow. So, and you weren't there when all that stuff went down?
No, but I was there during a couple of raids, which was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll definitely talk about that. So,
mm-hmm.
You know, you girls training, and how long were you at the house before you decided to go independent?
It was only about 15 months because I really didn't like it there. It was highly sexualized environment, and we were encouraged to upsell a lot, and that just wasn't really my brand. It didn't feel right to me, and I was always being kind of chided for it. So I, as one does, started collecting all my client names and contacting them outside of my work email, and just really curated a lot of people that I loved after that. Yeah, I still sometimes see to this day. A lot of them, actually, I still see to this day.
That's awesome.
I know, they're impressive people.
So I want to ask some questions about some of your past things. So you said one of the things you really loved doing was sitting on boys. So is this what, so is this part of your kind of wrestling kind of enthusiasm? And is this something you would say is a specialty of yours in how you play?
I can see why you would glean that, but to be very honest, I'm not really interested in wrestling. I'm too concerned about my own safety, and I really don't know how to wrestle properly. But it's adjacent to that in that I just really feel powerful when I am handling someone's body and manipulating their body, and commanding their attention, kind of overcoming them.
Got it. So then in your, in your exploration, obviously these things were happening with boys in more of like a very playful, competitive way. At the time when, boys and girls are sort of like the same size, there's not like huge differences, right?
Right.
Were you exploring kink and BDSM in your personal life, like in a sexual content or context or anything like that as well?
Yes, and even was exploring a sub side that didn't pan out, didn't really feel right to me, but I was definitely in a space where I was exploring all of it. The only problem is I had a hard time finding willing partners. Like, people that I was interested in relationships with were not really interested in BDSM. And for some reason, it still happens like that to this day. But, I'm so fortunate that I have my passion is my profession. My hobby is my profession. So I'm able to shake it out in my work.
Yeah, I think it's, I guess it also depends on what you're looking for in a partnership too. So, I think that can vary in, not all dominant individuals necessarily want to date a submissive person.
Sure.
For a variety of reasons. And not all people want to be submissive all the time too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would like some intersectionality there, like at least a little maybe kink, but it's so funny. I tend to couple up with super vanilla people, and it's kind of adorable.
Do you turn them just a little, like just a little?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's my angle. Maybe that's my angle all along. Like, maybe that's my end goal.
You're like, this is a challenge. I mean,
yeah, you're actually enlightening me right now. You could be tapping into something that I hadn't quite noticed.
So for me, I love the challenge.
Right.
So I think that's also the appeal, where I'm just like, I feel like many femdoms, we kind of that competitive side, but also that like huntress side.
Exactly. Totally.
There's like a part of you that just wants to push, right? Just
yes, absolutely.
When someone's like, "Oh, I've never done any of those things," I'm like,
I know. You get like your evil fingers like tapping. Yes.
It's the same drive that you're like, "Oh, you want to race? You want to wrestle?
Let's do this. I'm in, both feet. Absolutely.
So what would you say are what you're known for? What is your style of domination? What are the activities you really enjoy? What type of subs do you enjoy? especially for those out there who are very curious about that too.
Yeah. So, I feel like my interests are so far and wide, but if I were to narrow it down a little bit, I would say that I certainly mostly enjoy someone who loves to be touched. Hard touches, soft touches. I think that my innermost dom is a seductress. I want I like sensory play a lot. Like I think that's probably my favorite thing is sensory play and sensory deprivation, outside of corporal, which I think is a lot of us too. But it took me a long time to actually get into corporal, strangely, because I love it so much now. But I remember when I was first starting out and people wanted me to hurt them outside of the normal bounds. I mean, I say normal in quotes, like the normal bounds of what we're familiar with. I was very nervous about it, but now I really enjoy the energy exchange there and the consent there. And I realized that's the only thing that I wasn't like getting at that point. So, yeah, I love impact play. I love sensory play. I love, playing with like kind of gender play. I think, let's see. I do love face sitting. There's a little hat tip to baby Estelle on the playground.
Let me sit on you.
Let me sit on you. It's all good.
How do you feel about being carried around? As someone who likes to sit on others, you like to be carried around. Right. Carry fetish. So it's something, it's ever since I was a kid. I did not realize that until literally 3 or 4 years into domination work. I was like, I actually had a sub who was like, oh, you have a lift and carry fetish. And I was like,
whoa,
I totally do.
This is major. Wait a second. So you like to like sack of potatoes somebody over your shoulder?
No, I like being carried around. So that's my lift and carry fetish. Since I was a kid, I have always loved to be picked up and carried around like a total queen.
Oh, I love it. It's so soothing.
Yeah. And so I think, that's sitting on someone is a good little offshoot of being like carried around. Like my fantasy, one of my biggest fantasies is to be carried around for 24 hours and never touch the floor.
Oh my God,
I could be handed off to somebody else, obviously.
So hot. I love you right now. You're blowing my mind. Can you just elaborate on like what that looks like and how you pose that question? Like, can you just pick me? Do you want to be carried like a baby?
Yeah, because I'm like, I'll take it.
I love it.
Like I've been carried, like firemen carried, carried on the back, koala'd in the front. Just like even sometimes when you're stepping on someone's foot as if you're like a little girl dancing with someone.
Love.
Yeah. And so I've always, as a kid, like even as a kid, I'm a petite person. As a kid, I was carried around a lot. And I had a lot of older male cousins and I was like the youngest out of all my cousins. So I would have them carry me around, and then just like from guy friends to people I dated, I would always have them carry. And so it's just a theme in my life. And so in play, I would sometimes have my subs carry me around just as like I wanted to do, right? So I'm like, now pick me up, like whatever, like sometimes it could be a fun challenge or making them into a horse or, whichever. And so over time, I realized that was what it was. Even while I was playing for a long time, I didn't, because I was also at a house for a bit. You don't always like realize it. And then some weird moment happens and you're like, oh, wait, I'm relating to this thing, and there was totally a name for it.
Yes. Yes. And those things happen. I mean, obviously they happen in the crux between, finding your community before you're a pro, but it also happens in the duration of your lifetime as a pro or as a lifestyle person, as a kinky person, period. You're like, oh, I'm not the only one. And there's so much validation in that. I love that. But anyway, shout out. Hello, all the boys. Did you hear that Lucy wants to be carried?
I feel like you would want to be carried.
I'm a bigger human, I think.
Doesn't matter. Somebody will carry you.
I just want these boys to start working on their muscle development so that they can pick you up and give you everything you want.
I definitely want, if someone ends up hearing this interview and is like, Miss Estelle Sinclair, can I be the first person to carry you around? If you end up getting a kink for it,
I will be sending you a picture of that. Yes, because you have influenced me. Maybe bad influence on me. These boys are going to break their backs.
Well, that's what they're here for.
That's right. Die trying to please me. I love it.
So what are some of your limits? What are some activities you don't enjoy for, people who...
Oh, that's a good question. So I forgot to mention that I also love strap-on play. I don't know how I whiffed on that, but that's huge for me. Any kind of anal play. Love, love, love. I don't like full toilet. That's never something I've been into. I respect women that are into that, and I think it's phenomenal, but it's just not sexy to me. So I tend to just kind of stray from stuff that I don't personally think is sexy. Yeah. So there's that. And within the quote normal bounds of the things that we do, I can't specifically think of anything else. Gosh.
Is there kind of demeanor or personality or how a sub approaches you that can be off-putting for you? Because I think that also kind of goes in the realm of limits too. Like, do an example of that, just if it helps. I don't coddle, and there's certain, like, I love diaper play in a humiliation way.
Sure.
And I like baby play in a humiliation way, but I don't do it as like a true adult baby that requires like mothering or coddling. I'm definitely more of a disciplinarian. So I'm clear about that like, if you're a sub who needs me to coddle you, like I'm very good about, aftercare and stuff like that. But if you need me to coddle you, we're not going to be a good match.
Like specifically in an ABDL dynamic, or
just in general, like some people just need to be coddled through every little step. Right. And I'm an educator. I will educate you, but I will not coddle you. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that you have a well-developed idea of what you don't want. I unfortunately don't, I guess. One thing I really am not good at, and I don't like because of, if I'm not good at it, I don't like it, is really, really heavy degradation. It's so hard for me I love people. I want people around me to be happy. I'm a pacifist in most situations. And I just really have a hard time. Like, unless I really significantly hate you, it's difficult for me to be super, super rude to someone, even in a role play. It just doesn't come naturally to me. But there are some people that have figured out that that's a button. Make me hate you, and then pay me a lot of money to be super mean, and then it's genuine. So
they're like, just naturally pissing me off. We can go from there.
Right? You are charged a premium for pissing me off, by the way. That's your kink. Be prepared.
So it sounds like you're also not a yeller. Yeah. Because haven't you gotten that where somebody's like, oh, mistress, I want you to like yell at me and just
No.
yell. And I'm like, I don't yell.
No, I think that's, I don't know, to each their own, of course, but for me, it doesn't feel right. Like, I don't really want to be pissed at you. I don't even want to pretend like I'm pissed at you.
Yeah.
I want us to symbiotically work in tandem to create a really sexy energy exchange, whatever that looks like. But I don't want you to feel like I really actually despise you. And it's difficult for me to put on a mask of that in a role play, even unless it's a really hyperbolic, like ridiculous role play, where I have to put on a fake, accent or something.
Are you good at accents?
No, I'm not, but I'm touching on that because I used to work with a woman who was such a wonderful role player, and she would just put it on, and she would come up with an accent, and the words would just roll off her tongue, and she was so serious, and I admired that so much about her. That's by design. She was an actor. It was so beautiful to watch.
Wow. Yeah, I cannot do accents. I love role plays, but you have me do an accent. That role play is going downhill so quick.
Yeah, you're not going to stay in character too long laughing at yourself.
Yeah, I do like the ridiculous scenes, right? Because then it's easier to kind of play because it's so out of the realm of reality. And
right.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And on that note, there does tend to be a lot of laughter and a lot of playfulness in my sessions, even if they do involve some really intense acts, because I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be.
I am. That's what we do.
So you've been doing this for 15 years, a little bit more?
About 15. I started online, I think, with I started online when I was in my early 20s in the FinDom realm, which I forgot to mention, in the live journal days. Were you around for live journal domination?
Yeah. So live journal, wow, I have not heard that in a while.
Yeah, I mean, we're going old school.
So how did that, that is very interesting. How did you start with that? Like, what did that look like?
I honestly don't even remember what the origin point was, and I wish that I could. Yeah. But I remember I probably ventured into that space because I've somehow found community there and was like, oh, all the bossy girls are over here. This is where I want to hang out online. And FinDom is always huge, but it was, I think, maybe just a seedling then and has grown into something else. But I enjoyed, this was also AOL Messenger days. So I enjoyed chatting with people online, and it was a development of my own sense of self as a dom, but it was also just figuring out other people and understanding more about kink and understanding how a transaction works within kink and testing boundaries as far as what if I want this and then I just ask for it and then I get it. And that's a beautiful thing. So maybe that's what it looked like, but it feels like it was so long ago. It's difficult to remember exactly.
That's amazing though. So how has those 15 years evolved for you within your own play, within your business, even your understanding of how stuff worked 15 years ago? What have you noticed for yourself in your own evolution?
So I guess I have become a lot more confident about, like I just said, asking for what I want. And my set of standards is pretty high in all sects of my life now because of my career. And I attribute that to all of those years doing what I do. But as far as evolution of doming for me, I over the last year during, most of COVID before I was vaccinated, I was trying to venture into the more virtual side, and that was really super difficult for me. And it was a moment when I felt like, okay, now I'm that old lady who like doesn't know how to operate the iPhone. Like I felt like technology had surpassed my skill set. And when I was trying to tap into it, right, I'm working on it, and I'm actually like in the beginning I had a lot of vigor for it and a lot of passion for like creating content and like keeping up with everybody, and I thought it was really fun. And then it's just really dove hard. I completely got burned out on it, and I hated it, and now I don't ever want to do it again. But so I understand that BDSM has evolved to not only exist in lifestyle and then in the physical world as a professional, but there's a whole different world where people are just doing it online. And I don't know how much of that world I can be involved in because of the energy expense, really. And you just learn to become so much more aware of your energy expenditure as you not only get older, but you're just dealing with the public, and you're providing a service that people want.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one, that those who have been in the industry, especially the in real life kind of industry, have mentioned a lot, like and especially due to COVID too, like this like influx of like online sex work in general. The kind of era we're in of like content producing. Just like content, whether you're someone who is an influencer, on Instagram, to someone who has a fan site or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like content, continue, and like so much for so little too. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And all that stuff has a really slow payoff, which I don't prefer to. I just am really I want immediate gratification a lot of times these days. And I've already set the hook, I think, for a lot of my business. And I see a lot of the same people that I've been seeing for a long, long time. So if I were new to this industry, it would be difficult to not be fully enveloped by the online world and creating content all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that that's not the space where I'm glad that's not where I am in my life right now, because it takes away so much. I have other interests. I'm a pro dom. I'm a kinky person, but my business is not my whole entire life, and I have interests outside of that I want to spend time on. But if you're a full-time content creator, like that takes a lot out of your day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, not just making the content, but the design. It's also a business, the design and the editing and all of the stuff. And I just don't want to make time for that. If I could delegate those tasks to somebody else that I really, really trusted, it would be great. But that's not where we are.
I agree with you. It's super understandable how you feel, especially because if you're someone who loves touch,
yeah,
get that when you're creating content sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You're creating content to be consumed visually, audio, and so you're missing out on your own energy exchange that needs to happen with a sub or whichever. And especially if you're creating a lot of solo content, which a lot of people are, right? And, or if they do have content with somebody else, it's one other person. There's so much of that energy that is so important in play that just can't be captured. It's something so in the moment and unique for that moment and that interaction. Even if you've seen the same sub over and over, every single time you see them is so unique.
It's true.
Yeah,
fully agree with that.
that's the thing I hate about content making, where I'm just like, I'm getting nothing out of this.
Nothing. I mean, you get a lot of long-term stuff, but I just
but I like but that's the thing is like I love that energy, that happens. Like I crave that as someone, as a dominant. Like I crave to like claw my nails into someone.
Yes,
Like
make
all
them
of that.
hurt.
Yeah, all of that is like a craving.
Exactly. Fully resonates with me. Get that immediate energy exchange gratification. Yeah. Get Veruca salt on it. Yes.
So where do you see yourself kind of going and your career evolving in the next 5-10 years, you think?
It's so interesting you say that because I've been kind of tiptoeing into those thoughts lately because of my experience last year with being home and trying to create content. I really realized that sex work can be really isolating if you don't have a sense of community. And unfortunately, I don't feel like I have a huge community outside of my, my virtual world where I connect with people. So this year I've really been focused on pushing myself, and I've been really private in my professional career for the whole time, really. So being with you today, going to more events, and I'm doing this retreat in Hawaii with a bunch of DOMs at the end of next month. This is all stuff. I know it's going to be so cool, but this is all stuff that I would be like, yeah, but I'm just really reserved about my profession for some reason. But this year I'm out of it. I don't want that anymore. I'm ready to be more involved. When you're sitting at home and I have a partner that I cohabitate with, and I have all my best friends on the phone in other states, and I have my family that knows what I do. But like, there's nobody that's in my life that I talk to regularly that really understands what it means to do what I do. So so having none of that really made me kind of reflect on what's missing in my life. And it's definitely a sense of community in my industry. So the future for me is connecting more, putting myself out there more, just being more aware of other people that I want to be in the orbit of that are boss bitches.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Community is so important,
It's beyond important. Yeah.
But, it's very common for, it is when you do this work, you are, it's you and your client.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you make an effort, it's not like you work in an office, and it's different from the house days, right? The house, usually you get to know a few people.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't do that as an independent person, you can literally just be by yourself for so long. Yeah. And so having other people who get the the nuances of like some of our work and some of our interactions, and sometimes when you need to vent, right?
Yeah.
When you have like a top high from this like crazy scene that you want to like tell,
right? Yeah.
You want to tell one of your dom friends, and they get, and you can just, and you don't have to have a filter in the fucked up shit you did.
Spot on. And to piggyback on that, you're reminding me that not only am I interested in the sense of community within our industry, I just want to hang out with girls more. I spend a lot of time with men and being in that energy, and I want more feminine energy in my life.
Yeah.
So I choose to surround myself with more dominatrices or kinky people who identify as tops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a very good place to be.
Thank you. Yeah.
I do want to open up to any questions from our audience. So if you have a question, please put it in the comment or the chat box. Please ask questions that are respectful and that pertain to this actual conversation compared to random shit.
Do you have trouble with the riffraff in the comments section?
sometimes it's like all kinds of things like, show us your feet. And we're
Oh,
like, no, that is not what that is. Again, you want content? Go sign up for any of it.
absolutely. There's no tip jar here. So
for all of you out there, if you do look below, Estelle's information is scrolling across, so that's the best way to follow, contact, join any of her fan club is there as well. We do have some questions coming in now. Okay. Well, somebody asked this, but you may not know. Somebody asked, as a weightlifting enthusiast, how much do you bench press and leg press, please?
So my bench press is not very strong. My chest is really difficult for me to connect with, my pecs. So I'm trying to get better at that. But I'm not quite sure how much I leg press either, because I work out with my trainer. We're training buddies, and we just throw some plates on and then try to go as hard as we can. However, I did just hit a PR for squats at 155, and I hit that about 9 times, I think. So that's my heaviest, and it's always been my goal to bench, squat, and deadlift my weight. So I've squatted and I've deadlifted my weight, but I have not bench pressed my weight, and I probably never ever will. I can't go above probably 90 pounds for a bench press.
Well, that's hard for women in general, just like we don't really have that muscle.
You're absolutely right.
Unless you really build and build and build and build eventually,
Yeah, we are much stronger in the lower body, that's for sure.
Yeah, the booty and the legs always got everything. We have another question, which is, what was the most important thing you have learned about subs since you began?
That's a really great question. It's sincere. And I would say that every single human in any dynamic, in any walk of life, is so individual and so different. And one person who has one kink can look at it through a very different lens than somebody else who has the same kink. And so from my perspective, it's become really, really important to just unpack all of that, all of somebody's interests and where they come from and what they get out of them, in order to have a well-rounded view on what they need from you, or what they're looking to accomplish, because everyone is so different.
That's a really amazing answer. That I completely agree with that, the uniqueness of each individual, even with the same kinks, right?
Yeah, there's no cookie cutter kink.
So we have a really great question here. Miss Estelle Sinclair, I can't help but hear you have one of those special voices. Ever consider hypnosis, femdom audio, video, or VR-based media?
Oh, is there VR-based femdom media?
I think there is. I've known some people who've got into it, especially in the Bay Area, but you really have to, I do not know technology.
I can't even create content. Yeah, I don't know.
But do you do hypnosis, as an activity at all?
That's an interesting question, because in my baby dom days, I was very interested in hypnosis, and I am a really type A Virgo, and for me to go headfirst into something, I feel like, oh my God, your hair is so beautiful. Oh my God, it's so pretty. It's
very long.
Gorgeous. I really want to know everything about something before I apply it in my work, because I don't want to fuck it up, and I want it to be perfect. But the thing about hypnosis, from what I understand, is that there's not a ton of rules, and I don't know enough about it to really do hypnosis quite yet. However, when I was at DomCon last week in LA, I showed up for a hypnosis class, so excited, with my little pencil and paper, and the hypnosis class teacher did not show up. So major bummer. If anybody can point me in the direction of someone that can teach me, I'd be super happy to learn.
So there are actually hypnosis course, like actual real courses that you can take. It falls in line with NLP as well, neuro-linguistic programming. So a lot of people who do teach kind of both. There are definitely, especially in New York, there are some really well-known like doctors and groups that teach hypnosis and NLP. And so it usually is like a few-week course to complete, but I think it's something that might be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to look into that. Is that something you've done?
So Dia has done the hypnosis. I've done a lot of, I'm more interested in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, just as a life coach as well, and just like hacking my own like shit. So I've done a lot of reading and research on NLP more than anything, but hypnosis can use aspects of NLP and vice versa. There's some overlapping aspects to it.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to be educated on for sure.
There's a lot of info out there, so it's pretty, I'll see, I'll send it to you later, but I'll see what course she took. Here is a really great question that says, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger Dom self just starting out?
Wow. One piece. One. So many things. Yeah.
A bunch.
So I actually think I know this screen name, actually. That's funny. I would say you are capable of getting exactly what you want. So don't hesitate to just reach in and grab it. You can push someone harder than you think. You can push yourself harder than you think, and you're worth more than you think.
Love that.
Yeah. Your time is more.
Still needing to hear that to myself so many times. I'm like looking at myself in the mirror and I'm just like,
yes.
Lucy.
Just say it. Just say it to yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Self-coaching all the time.
True.
We also have this question. Similar to the experience of Mistress Lucy Sweetkill, what was your favorite aha moment discovering your own fetishes and interests that you would be willing to share?
Did I miss your aha moment?
Well, I think just talking about like my my lift and carry fetish. I have many aha moments, but that was one of them. I think that's what the person is referring to.
Let's see. Discovering my own fetish. Oh, okay. So this one's pretty unique. I kind of have a small following in the splosh community, which seems very off-brand to a lot of people for me. But I love pies in the face. In my own face, believe it or not. And so I only discovered, I know. I only discovered this because of my first splash wham fetishist that I ever played with was like, would it be okay if I also pied you in the face when you're pieing me in the face? And I'm like, sure, why not? Let's try it. And he asked me to get do my hair, do my makeup, put on something really cute, be just totally the pristine, beautiful package. And then for him to put custard pie in my face. And I got such a thrill out of being pied. And it wasn't a sensation. The sensation has really grown on me, but it was the immediate destruction of all that I built and like the disarmament that came with that. It was just kind of like, it's all gone and there's nothing you can do about it. All of that effort that you put into whatever you had going on is over. Now you're a complete fucking mess. It's hilarious. Just go with it. And it's turned into a really sexy, fun thing for me. And so I have a few regular splosh enthusiasts now, and I enjoy a fucking pie in the face. I know, you heard it here first. Don't ask me to do this.
I expected that. That's awesome. I hate I love splashing and I like to do the splashing.
Yeah.
And inherently, when you do splashing, you're going to get messy. It's
Yeah.
just with it on both parts. But I
Right.
don't want it. Like, I'm so particular about my hair. I'm like,
I can see that you take super good care of it. That's for sure.
so I'm like, nothing in the hair.
You'll find, however, that the oils and cream are really good for the luster of your hair.
Yes, I do. I'm just like, okay, only this can go in my.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man, that is a very great answer to that. I am going to use, because I know we're kind of at the end, I'm going to use this as our last question. Actually, I have 2 questions left, which is, I really love this question. So what do you find most rewarding? What's the most rewarding aspect about being a dom?
Oh, this is so big. I love that. I really love connection. I love to crystallize a really special moment with somebody and imprint them for the rest of their life. Not only with that moment that I've designed and executed especially for them, but just giving someone space to really feel validated in their kink and feel free in their submission is super, super rewarding for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, the imprinting, one of the memories that on their deathbed, that's my thing. I want to know, on your deathbed, I'm one of the top 5 to 10 memories that you think about.
Yes, same, 100% same. Yes.
Where it's all coming at you and you're like, oh shit, Mistress Lucy did this thing to me. Amazing.
Especially if you get to do something brand new to them. You're taking their virginity, essentially.
Yeah.
You're taking a cherry of some sort, and you get to be there for the rest of their lives. You get to live in their heads forever.
And that's so rewarding, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So last question, a little bit more of a lighthearted, fun. Favorite BDSM city for travel and play away from home? Where do you like to play?
Chicago is my home base. That's where my people are. That's where all the people that I've built so much trust and rapport with over time are. But I do come to New York regularly, and I love my New York people too. I haven't done a ton of touring. I do plan to be in London in November, however, so that's my first foray into some international touring. Hopefully that's great. If anybody has any insight on how to do that and how best to manage that, I'd be interested in hearing. But yeah, Chicago and New York are really my spaces, but obviously they're the best, but also for lack of knowing any other spaces.
Yeah. I think touring is kind of a little like, you got to be prepared for it. And I think it takes so much preparation. Like, you can't just go once. Like, people have to know you are going there consistently.
Yeah, true.
That's what I've heard about touring. And
yeah. You only play here in New York?
I'm usually New York and San Francisco and sometimes Boston. But before the pandemic, because I'm based in San Francisco, I'm from San Francisco, based in New York, but kind of did both. And so I know San Francisco very well, so it was easy to go back and forth because I know like all the play spaces there. I love the subs there as well.
Yeah.
And so it was like a place I'm going to anyways to visit family and friends. So I might as well hang out in a really kinky town too.
Love it. Yes.
Boston's very kinky as well.
It is?
Yeah, quite kinky.
I'm going to have to add it.
I feel like there's all these places in the Midwest too that are really kinky, and you just have to go there more often. I don't naturally go there, but I know from a lot of, Midwest has their kinky spots.
I'm telling you, Chicago's where it's at. These places.
Kinky people are everywhere, really.
They are. I think most of them live in Berlin, though. If you
most of them are in Poland,
right?
Some places there.
Czech Republic and Berlin.
So I want to thank you, Estelle, for being on our show.
Oh my God. What a pleasure. Thank you.
All our guests, if you know, end up watching this, which everyone ends up having, it's going to be on YouTube forever unless they kick us off. But
Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Oh my God.
please follow all of Estelle's accounts below. And of course, her website is there if you do want to reach out and schedule something. Again, Estelle, thank you for being on our show and giving us your time. It was such a great conversation. And to our audience, thank you again for joining. And, you know, next week we will have one of our archived shows, but then we'll be live the week after. So please join us for that. Thank you all. Have a great night.